The current administration has transformed our nation into a place wholly unwelcome and dangerous for immigrants. During the past 2 years, this administration has steadily advanced a racist agenda through rhetoric and the use of a mass armed wing of the government built for one purpose: mass deportation. The president has used ICE and CBP as an extension of his ideology that immigrants should be driven out and kept out at all cost. The current administration has commandeered the immigrant story. It has subverted the story, wrung out all evidence of hope, sacrifice, struggle. It's erased the tenacity and courage of the characters in their story, and sadly, it has very successfully vilified and criminalized immigrants. The administration has given free rein to ICE and CBP to terrorize, dehumanize, and abuse immigrant communities. The atrocious family separation policy is only one piece of a much larger enforcement and detention machinery that is tearing immigrant families apart both at the border and inside the United States. It has further militarized the southern border, targeted all undocumented immigrants for deportation, incarcerated thousands of children and adults in overcrowded, understaffed, inhumane conditions, and is trying to draft local and state law enforcement agencies into participating in the deportation machinery. Over the last year, ICE held an average of about 42,000 people a day in its network of more than 200 detention centers and jails. A huge increase when compared with previous administrations. A significant piece of the jump in people detained came not from people fleeing their countries and seeking protection at the border, but from increased ICE arrests in communities across the United States. And now we find ourselves once again under a broadly trumpeted and direct attack. Donald Trump has promised more raids, more deportations, more harassment of immigrants across the United States, specifically stating that he is targeting immigrants and their families who pose no risk to our communities starting as soon as Sunday. People are dying, children are getting sick, families are being torn apart. The future psychological costs alone of the separations and detentions are yet to be written. And yet this administration continues to defend and fortify their racist, heinous, and immoral treatment of families and individuals. In the last 2 years, 25 people, children, women, men, have died in custody of ICE and CBP. 25 wholly unnecessary deaths, the blood of which is on all our hands until we demand and witness a successful end to this terror. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. We need to take action. We need to make our demands loud and clear. Close the camps at the border, close detention centers in the U.S., and release the people. We have the power to see this through. We just have to believe it and act on it. The administration's current policies, such as family separation, indefinite detention, remain in Mexico, increased community raids, and substantial delays in adjudicating immigration cases have created utter chaos at the border and palatable fear and confusion within the interior. These policies are undermining U.S. asylum and immigration law, terrorizing entire communities, and should be halted immediately. Possible solutions exist. The U.S. government should improve the immigration court system and increase programs that provide legal counsel. The U.S. government should implement programs to facilitate the release of people from detention while they await court hearings. Alternatives to detention are tremendously less traumatic, far cheaper, and achieve extremely high appearance rates at court hearings. The U.S. government should work with foreign governments like Canada and Mexico to establish safe and effective refugee processing systems. And at last, the U.S. government should address root causes that push individuals to leave the Northern Triangle area and invest in international aid to programs that ameliorate conditions forcing people to flee. However, rather than consider these achievable and humane solutions, the Trump administration has translated its anti-immigrant and anti-asylum rhetoric into a painful reality for our immigrant communities, completely belittling and ignoring any humane recommendations and solutions. Enough. Congress must exercise oversight and assure our asylum and immigration laws are honored and our country's values upheld. Congress must hold ICE and all Department of Homeland Security accountable. Without accountability, the harsh and destructive tactics being used will continue, irreparably harming refugees, asylum seekers, other immigrants, families, businesses, and communities. And finally, Congress must pass a fair and family-friendly immigration reform package, a package that includes a pathway to permanent residency and citizenship for the over 1 million temporary protected status and DACA visa holders, and a package that provides unfettered immigration benefits to spouses and parents of U.S. citizens. We all agree that it is unconscionable and indefensible to callously separate families while they're seeking protection and permission to remain lawfully. We all agree that the detention of families, parents, and children who pose no flight risk or danger to the community is simply inhumane and unacceptable. We all agree that detention, whether at the border or internally, is harmful to children and their families, inflicts mental health trauma, subjects people to inadequate medical care, and prevents them from accessing much-needed legal counsel. We all agree that separation of families and the detention of families seeking protection is contrary to international refugee law, to our own asylum law, and to the integrity of this nation. Our laws are clear. If you express a fear of returning to your home country, you have a right to a hearing, period. We all agree that the immigration enforcement actions currently being undertaken by DHS are not humane or even remotely intelligent. We all agree on those points, but what can we do about it? What will our personal stories and our story as a community be around this issue? Do we want the story where we stand aside and let things fall as they may, believing and hoping that someone else will take care of the problem? Do we throw our hands up in the air and say, what can we do about it? I don't think so. This community is about lifting each other up, supporting and protecting each other. It's about action, justice, and fairness. We are all about community resiliency. With every new hate-driven policy emerging from this administration, we must dig deep in our reservoir of strength and rededicate ourselves to speaking out and taking action. In Olympia, community resiliency is alive and well. In this group today are members of Strengthening Sanctuary, a group formed after the 2016 elections to address what we could all see as the writing on the wall in regards to immigration. Volunteers from Strengthening Sanctuary and Cielo, discussed previously by Alejandra Hunt, help individuals create a family safety plan so that a trusted adult can care for an immigrant's child in the event that that immigrant is detained or deported. Having a family safety plan in advance helps families make important determinations at a time when the family is not under duress or experiencing chaos due to a detention. Strengthening Sanctuary members conduct Know Your Rights presentations to members of faith communities, college groups, school groups, and other community sites. During these presentations, they talk about the Constitution and how it applies to everyone in the United States, regardless of place of birth or the document you carry in your pocket. They've demonstrated what a legitimate warrant looks like and when you have to open your door to ICE and when it can remain closed. We have members involved with advocating for legislation meeting with state legislators to encourage that they support and pass legislation that has a positive impact on immigrants in our communities. Members are meeting with different law enforcement agencies to discuss their policies as they relate to immigrants and how to reduce fear. A fearful community does not step forth and report crimes. It is in all our best interest that our immigrant communities feel safe around law enforcement officers. We have a group working with communities of faith towards offering physical sanctuary to immigrants in need of protection. Temple Beth Hatfalah is the first to provide a sanctuary site, and we are extremely grateful for their hard work and dedication to the issue of sanctuary. Additionally, we have an education group that offers workshops and support materials to school staff, teachers, and administrators. That line does not sufficiently address everything they've done. It's a very dynamic and productive group of volunteers. We have members, Bob Ziegler especially, sitting right here on the front row, who regularly write letters to the editor to keep the issues facing our immigrant neighbors on our community's radar. We have members reaching out to other groups in an effort to build coalition, to partner with groups so that we can become more powerful and influential as we continue our work with and in support of immigrant communities. And finally, we're interested in accompanying immigrants who must appear at the courthouse in order to witness and document any ICE interaction or activity. WASIN, the Washington Immigration Solidarity Network, is seeking volunteers for this purpose. If you're interested in any of these activities or have additional ideas, please stop by the Strengthening Sanctuary table and leave your contact information. We need your help. Our community resiliency is evident in our ability to do everything we can to avoid hanging our heads in despair and throwing up our arms in defeat as this administration continues down its hate-filled path. Together, let's continue fighting this good and just fight and see it to its final and inevitable end. No more deaths, no more separations, no more detentions, no more raids. End it now.